The corpo gaming space is not in a good place right now, and we tried to warn them, but they wouldn't listen. Now here we are. Yellow Flash talks about Compulsion games being shut down. Compulsion to be gay as fuck.
South of Midnight had quite the history attached to it. This studio got the cut. And it's funny, a lot of these outlets, they were saying, this is one of the greatest games ever made. Polygon here says, Microsoft may be shutting down the studio behind one of 2025's best games. Oh my, one of the best games, you say. Nobody played it, though. South of Midnight, 34 players was whatever this had at the time it was taken, but 89 was the 24-hour peak for that day, and an all-time peak of 1,438. Let's give it to Compulsion Games, really just bringing people in. We Happy Few, I don't remember too much about that. Did a little bit better.
I remember at launch, We Happy Few being a complete buggy mess, and a lot of friends that I have who played it at the time loved it, but were very disappointed at how broken it was.
Some other studios here that are up for the chop, Ninja Theory, Double Fine, they have quite the history. We're going to talk about them a little bit too, and then Arcane. And there's likely going to be quite a few more studios that are going to get cut. And I never understood why you would hire people like this that are just hostile towards your core consumer audience. It just never made sense to me, but they just keep double downing on it and trying to pretty much like lecture their customers into being the people that they want them to be. It's very strange, but man, what a fun, happy-go-lucky person this looks like, right? Pretty sure it's just amazing to hang out with at parties, gives the best lecture. There's a lot of people losing their minds over this shit. A lot of people blaming capitalism. If only these were state-sponsored games and it wouldn't matter. You chuds wouldn't have won if we had had communism. But unfortunately, because we're in a capitalistic society, when people tell me to fuck off, I don't have to buy their games, and I don't. And a lot of other people didn't. But he's very upset. Buddy, your gamer voice means nothing. This game won awards, and people liked it. Oh, whoa. Game awards from the mainstream industry. The same people that called this piece of shit, and it is a terrible game. One of the best games of 2025. Probably because it has a black woman as the lead. That gets you like Game of the Year contention in the mainstream industry. And it'll win you awards. Because, I mean, look at the Oscars. It's all DEI shit now. And it's been like that in the gaming awards for many, many years now. Asmund Gold chimes in. Wow, that sounds great. So true. Maybe you can send this to all the unemployed devs and they can use it in their applications to McDonald's to explain why they left their previous job. You can't make games like that anymore when they cost so much. South of Midnight was created by a team of over 100 people who worked on it for 7 years. 7 years.
Games cost way too much fucking money nowadays, and they take way too long to be made for nobody to be playing them. They actually don't, not really. Most people buy their games $15 to $30 because they're on sale, and they're a smaller, more refined and niche experience that they're looking for.
They also hired Sweet Baby to come in and work on it. Gamers rejected it. They rejected it. $100 million, and it only peaked at 1,438 concurrent players on Steam. The studio crowed that it had reached 1 million players. My favorite cope. If this game was such a success, I don't think that this studio would be closing down. It's a complete, utter failure. Double Fine is funny because Double Fine was a very proud partner of Anita Sarkeesian, along with these other brands here. But Double Fine praised Anita. They wouldn't have been able to make the game that they made, which I believe was Psychonauts 2, which again is a game that I didn't play it. I love the first one. I played the first one on the original Xbox, but skipped this one due to some shit like this. And it looks like I wasn't the only one. I don't remember that game making waves either. So a lot of these people did this to themselves.
There are way too many games that are just better experiences without all of these types of people. I would rather just give my money to them. Moving on to Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet. It's nowhere to be found. And apparently it's going to take years still to come out.
Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, a new IP which is supposedly their next release, well, it sounds as though it is being pushed back to the point, as you can see from the headline of this article from last month, is still a few years out. And recently, there was this news where Jason Schreier pointed to this situation with Naughty Dog as a prime example of a studio being wildly inefficient and upsetting its parent company.
You know, I know what you're doing right now, and I don't like it.
Well, there was supposed to be, it was rumored, a new trailer for Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet that was going to show up at the State of Play a few weeks ago, but that trailer never happened. This has caused a lot of speculation as to why we didn't see it. I think there are two reasons. First of all, after the game's first trailer was rejected at the Game Awards a few years ago, I think Naughty Dog has been hiding this game from the public, and I also suspect that these developers are just not efficient. They are focused on details that gamers do not care about.
And you know, a lot of the design around the trailer I really like. I really like the music and the colors and the vibe for the most part. But the design of the characters and the attitude is just all wrong. And the social media just does not help.
But one developer has come out to defend Naughty Dog, claiming that everything is fine, and Intergalactic, once again being a no-show, is just no big deal.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Totally fine. I don't know why it's coming out all loud and squeaky, because really, I'm fine.
Dr. Disaster continues talking about other properties in the Naughty Dog universe, and how the culture around it just does not look good right now. There's too much heat on Naughty Dog and nobody wants it.
Set aside even the fact that they just haven't put out any new games in 6 years, this here is The Last of Us Season 2 Rotten Tomatoes score, and obviously that is pretty damned horrible. This show was detested by people once the story moved away from the original game, and if you look here, this wasn't just review bombing, as the Naughty Dog copers like to claim. This hatred for the story resulted in a total collapse of the show's viewership. People dropped out big time, to the point that, as you can see, Neil Druckmann left the production of the show, and he's now no longer going to be one of the producers. I think HBO was not happy at all with how The Last of Us Season 2 was received, and that is why the show, which it was being said that they were going to need at least 4 seasons to wrap up the story of the second game prior to the release of Season 2, but as soon as the show's ratings fell off a cliff, it was announced that they were ending the whole thing after Season 3. And then you combine that with this shit right here. This is the trailer for Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet, which originally dropped in December of 2024 at the Game Awards. This was released on the official PlayStation YouTube account, as you can see, and it hit 3.6 million views, but look at that ratio. People utterly roasted this thing for the lousy, bald-headed woman character design, and they were ratioed at a clip of almost 3-1. This is a studio then, which really needs a win. Their reputation is being hurt, and Sony is not going to be happy from a simple financial perspective.
And he goes on to talk about rumors that were hitting Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet on social media, and it's just adding more fuel to the fire. And everyone is losing interest in social media talking about it. People keep hearing that Intergalactic is going to show up, and then it never does, and it doesn't help the situation at all.
With that said, it was rumored that an Intergalactic trailer, a new one, was going to hit the State of Play a few weeks ago, but the State of Play came and went, and instead of Intergalactic, the heavy hitters shown off by Sony were Wolverine and God of War Laufey. With that being said, let's take a look at this article here from Games Radar, where the studio is being defended for not putting anything out. It says here, you may have noticed a certain tentpole studio from Sony was missing from this year's State of Play showcase preceding Summer Game Fest. Despite the ongoing development of Intergalactic The Heretic Prophet and rumors of more, Naughty Dog had no part in the offerings, and a former contributor to the studio was quick to explain why, retweeting a post speculating on the team's general absence. Del Walker, an artist who worked on The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, made the reasons clear. Every time a AAA game studio has to move resources over to making a trailer, it causes the game to lose about 4 months of actual dedicated development iteration time, he writes. Look, do you want a new game or not? Walker finishes, laying out the paradigm. It seems we either get footage and a material update on what's going on with Intergalactic, or anything else the devs might be working on, or we let them work and get a finished game sooner. Alright, so first of all, I have to say that if it takes a team 4 freaking months of work to put together a couple of minutes of trailer, then that is a perfect example of what I'm talking about when I say that these people appear to be extremely inefficient.
And then he talks about developers just not knowing what they're doing and thinking spending more money and spending more time will fix the issues. However, there is a severe lack of talent, passion, and work ethic.
That also makes it seem like these developers are knowingly putting lipstick on a pig. Why does one have to deviate so fully from the work that they're doing in order to make a trailer? Why can't the devs just use some cutscenes or gameplay from the actual game itself that they're already working on and use that to convince people to buy the game? And that brings me to my next point. Do you know what would categorically not take 4 months from a team of developers to make? This is something that I could do if I had access to the game in something like a day, if even. What would take no time at all is a simple gameplay trailer. Just let someone who is good at playing the game play the thing for a few minutes, show off some combat, show off some exploration, maybe show off a few cool cutscenes that don't give away too much of the story, and voila! If the game is actually good, then people will have something to sink their teeth into.
So yeah, and I feel like those same people that were hating are gonna play that game, and guess what? They're gonna love it. So
I don't know where you get your delusions.
But on the inside, I suspect they are quite concerned. I've talked about what a budget for this game must look like before, and how they will have to likely do massive numbers in order to recoup the budget on this thing. Naughty Dog knows this, and there really is no spinning the situation in a positive way.
Now, moving on to Vera Dark talking about another woke studio flopping. You love to see it.
Don't Nod, the developer of games like Life is Strange, Bloom and Rage, and Aphelion, will see its cash reserves depleted by November because Tencent has refused to invest further. It is always sad to see people losing their jobs, but as I always like to say, if you suck at your job, you don't deserve to have that job. Studios have wasted so much money. We have seen their ranks absolutely skyrocket in numbers, and of course, they were always going to have to downsize. They were always going to have to put less money into games. It is not okay that Xboxes are putting $400 million into single releases, especially when that single release is most likely not going to make those funds back. But Don't Nod had always released very specific types of games. They were always pretty progressive games, right? Life is Strange, Bloom and Rage, Aphelion, all titles that have a certain description of seems like it was made by DEI dollars behind it. Now it looks like they are going to no longer exist come the end of the year if they can't find further investment, because Dontnod's studio financial situation is claimed to be extremely bad. Reserves are getting low, and Tencent refuses to fund another game or increase capital. The outlook is bleak at Dontnod. An audit report warns that the studio's cash reserves will be completely depleted by November, and really, they only have themselves to blame for this situation. Life is Strange, Double Exposure, Aphelion, Bloom and Rage, these are not games that people generally want. Life is Strange got popular and then they completely squandered it. They tried to almost create a more diverse Life is Strange clone with Bloom and Rage. Then you have Aphelion, who has a strong black woman lead. Game itself is a walking simulator. These are not titles that people want to play. And if you make bad entertainment and you sacrifice the entertainment value in order to push an agenda or simply push as much diversity into people's faces as possible, that's not going to work out. Diversity and inclusivity is great when it is done naturally, but Dontnod and many of the people that they work with do not have that mindset.
And then she goes on to talk about how nobody is actually playing any of these games. So why are they being made? I don't know anybody who plays games like these, and apparently neither does anyone else.
Aphelion, their most recent release, has an all-time peak on Steam of 219. I personally didn't play it. I didn't want to play a walking simulator when there were better games releasing. I did, though, unfortunately, play Lost Records Bloom and Rage. Absolutely terrible experience. All-time peak on release was 2,996, and it's actually seen a little bit of a spike since these rumors started circulating that Dontnod is screwed, but of course it's not going to be enough to save them. Now, all of this is being reported by a French games news outlet, Game Cult. Auditors have sounded the alarm at Dontnod, warning that the studio could go under by the end of the year. This is because Tencent has refused to support the studio going forward, meaning it must find new backers, and I don't think they're going to find any, but trouble is brewing at Dontnod. An auditor's report warns of the studio's cash reserves running low. Their latest project, which was more or less in development, was recently scrapped after their investor withdrew. Everything hinges on the possibility of signing with a publisher for a new project, and right now, publishers seem reluctant to take a chance on new projects. Indeed, Xbox pulled funding from studios after a larger number of layoffs last year and is poised to roll out even more. Earlier this year, NetEase pulled its support for Gang of Dragon, a new game from the creator of the Yakuza series, just a couple of months after it was revealed. It seems like the studio has closed as a result, and Dontnod is no newcomer to the games industry. The studio is best known for giving us the Life is Strange series before leaving it to work on new IPs. However, given that other industry vets are also struggling to secure funding, it's no surprise to see that this isn't enough to bring in publishers. So the media is already trying to almost release these articles in an attempt to get backers interested and investors interested. I don't think that obviously that is going to happen.
Moving on to the CD Projekt Red situation, they keep pandering to the modern audience, and it's pissing off their normal fan base.
Earlier today, CD Projekt Red finally made their Pride Month tweet. We really need corporations to support the LGBT community. Rainbow capitalism is really the best thing ever, isn't it? Yeah, we're really against corporations, unless they pander. Then we love them. For several years, we've partnered with this campaign against homophobia, and we're doing it again this year. Check out more of our approach at cdprojectred.com/en/diversity. It's really funny when corpos and couch activists make some virtue signal slot posts like this and then say that they're against homophobia. And it's like, dude, your posts are literally making more homophobic people. You probably just made like 10,000 more. CD Projekt Red is now getting backlash and hiding comments after a post announcing that diverse teams with different experiences help create better games. Oh yeah, BlackRock definitely approves of that corporate statement. Good job, guys. And so CD Projekt Red was getting responses like, stop at the virtue signaling already. This is a whole lot of text just to say, don't buy our games. I got it, I won't, geez. And then eventually, after around 1,000 responses like that, they locked the responses entirely. On top of locking the post, there's also like hundreds of hidden responses as well. It seems like at some point they gave up hiding everything and then just stopped watching the post for a while and then ultimately locked the post.
I am a big believer in don't block people, don't lock replies. That is a bitch move, and it shows that you're just scared and you don't like it when your feelings are hurt. So just don't do it. I lose all respect for you if you're just sitting there blocking people and getting mad on the internet. Go fuck yourself.
But now I'm going to give you guys a little bit of lore. You ready for this? In 2020, specifically October 16, 2020, a giant post on Reset Era, around 4,000 words long, was created titled, CD Projekt Red is a transphobic company. It's time we stop making excuses for them. And like I said, the OP went on to detail like 4,000 words here. With the OP posting stuff to bolster their claim, like in 2018 when Cyberpunk Official responded to this guy Ryan who said, I want more guys. Cyberpunk Official saying, did you just assume their gender? And other examples in the 2020 post that seem to be broken because, as you can see, they're not really appearing. A couple years ago, I did make a long video covering this entire post. This time, I'm not going to rehash the entire thing again. Just a quick summary, some context, some lore, like I said. Ultimately, the Reset Era post got 144 pages of responses before being locked by the mods in 2025, though the bulk of the responses seem to have occurred between 2020 and 2023. So those claims against CD Projekt Red started in 2020. And then in 2021, CD Projekt Red started including this diversity and inclusion stuff on their website, in their corporate structure, and it all really comes off. Like they were terrified of the Reset Era mob, which is silly to begin with because who cares what Reset Era says, but they apparently did. But it wasn't just that they were trying to appease the mob that was going after them. They also, at that point in time, let me rephrase slightly. At that point in time, there was also a proliferation of DI ESG grants and funding. And so the corpos over at CD Projekt Red probably thought, hey, we're being accused of being transphobic. Let's make a whole section about DI and inclusivity and all that. And we can appease the mob and also try to get these grants that I just mentioned. And sure enough, in 2023, CD Projekt Red was awarded a DEI award. Wow, guys. Bragging about this on their own website. Fast forward to 2026, and like I just said, they're in the news once again today because they're still pushing this stuff and people are criticizing them and they're running damage control, hiding responses, and locking the post entirely.
I try and tell people all the time that the disgusting corpo mindset does not just exist in Hollywood, it exists in the video game world also. Video games are the biggest market, and when you have hundreds of $1 million involved, and international investors and government funding, and activist funding and all the like, no shit that you're gonna have some evil shit going on. Moving on to Penguin Zero, the moist man himself, talking about how Xbox didn't actually change and they are not back, and I totally agree, but for different reasons, because he's wrong about some things. But that doesn't matter because the energy is still the same.
We have been schmeckeldorfed. It's only been 2 months since they played the big prank on us, since we were all deceived, like Sauron giving us the rings. I foolishly bought into the idea that Xbox's new CEO Asha Sharma was on the right path after she made that statement about the shortcomings and what Xbox needs to return to its former glory, and even dropping the absurd Game Pass prices down, which I know isn't some move of an angel, like it's not some benevolent gift she bestowed upon us out of the goodness of her heart. It is a standard business tactic called price anchoring, because where they ended up with the new price for Game Pass is still higher than where the price was initially, before they had the absolute lunacy that was the 50% price increase, which is just fucking sinful. Trust me, just like when the peanut butter's on the top shelf, I know it's there and it's painful. I get it, I really do. But what you have to understand, when it comes to Xbox, we are just emaciated when it comes to anything positive in that fucking cesspool. You have to dumpster dive into the very bottom, get into the dumpster juice, the sludge water there, to find W's when there's even a morsel of one there. And in this case, her reverting that price even a little bit, like taking foot off of everyone's nutsack, I believed was at least a step in the right direction. And the things she was saying was accurate about like why Xbox is no longer the juggernaut that it was. So I really did think that she was starting to course correct the ship here. But now, sports fans, I gotta tell you, it really seems like anyone who takes up the mantle at Xbox is cursed to ride the Orb of Confusion crazy style. Like, that's the only explanation here. They are once again back on their barnacles, bro. And to be fair, it's not even accurate to say that, because they just never stopped with the horseradish. I just assumed, and I think a lot of us assumed, that with Asha correctly identifying the shortcomings of the Xbox brand for so long, they would also have that come to Jesus moment, that eureka, the light bulb that goes off in their head, that the relentless, ruthless, cutthroat shutting down of studios was also not helping them at all.
Isn't this what she's known to do, though? Didn't she do that at the last company that she worked for? She just completely gutted everything and then left, or she got removed or whatever. It's the same thing. Imagine thinking that a corporation, a modern corporation that has existed for decades, is gonna do what the consumer actually wants. Blah, blah, ha, ha.
In most cases, there were a few that I understood where they just literally had nothing to show for years upon years of work, like just couldn't release a game. So I get it, because it was just hemorrhaging money, just these huge payments and still not a single game that they were able to fart out. Like, I get those. But that's not all of their shutdowns. And their most recent ones actually have me at my chin scratching the fuck out of it, because I can't understand. Because some of the studios they shut down are actively far along in development on titles people are excited for, or they have also just recently released titles as well. It just makes no sense to be constantly looking for ways of shutting down these studios when the biggest problem, the one that's plagued Xbox the most above all others, and one that Asha herself has even tinkered around with and slapped around, is that Xbox has no games.
And Charlie gets into one of the most egregious studio shutdowns in history, and it actually affected me, and it pisses me off because I like the Senua games. I saw the trailer for it and I immediately thought, this is the God of War that I want, but now I'm definitely out on it because fuck Xbox.
They have just shut down Ninja Theory, and they put the fear of God in other studios under their umbrella. It's not even really an umbrella. They got them in like fucking pit of like barbed wire, basically. They're walking on eggshells down there. But they have also apparently been tinkering around with the idea of, Double Fine maybe closing the door there, Compulsion Games, and Arcane. Now, I think this is crazy because at the most recent Xbox showcase, which was like 8 days ago, they prominently featured Ninja Theory's upcoming game, the new Hellblade game, Senua. And I understand the Hellblade franchise has historically flopped. It's been kind of weak in terms of sales, and I personally am not a huge fan of them. I find them to be more like tech demos than actual games. But they were actively far along with Senua, and they had even showcased it at Xbox's own event to pretty big success, because it looks like they were prioritizing making it a game for the first time in this franchise's history. So it was pretty exciting to a lot of people, and now they announced that the studios vanished to the Shadow Realm. Wait, what? They just unveiled the new Hellblade, and now they're shutting them down? Compulsion Games, Double Fine, and Arcane are also at risk of getting shut down. Yeah, I see Compulsion and Double Fine here. Arcane too? They were told on a call on Monday, and they've got several other active negotiations about spinning off Compulsion Games and Double Fine. Asha Sharma and Chief Content Officer Matt Booty warning last week of a reset at Xbox, laying out several challenges facing Xbox business, including that it had overextended with its studio system, and the hardware component crisis is significantly driving up prices. I never said Xbox was back, just that Asha was at the very least not driving it more actively into the ground. It was taking steps to steer it in the right direction, and now it's right back to standard Xbox behavior. Is there a way back for Xbox? Games! Make games!
Games that don't cost $500 million each to make. and don't try and pander to a wider modern audience that doesn't exist, sure. Moving on to the Bungie Destiny Marathon situation where they basically just shut down Destiny 2 and fired everybody, and is just focusing on Marathon for some reason.
A little while ago, Jason Schreier reported that Bungie likely was going to have some layoffs, and we just got a major update with some breaking news of r/gaming leaks and rumors stating that allegedly Bungie to suffer 50% staff reduction due to layoffs. A studio that Sony purchased for about $3.7 billion, and working on Marathon, a game allegedly costing upwards of $250 million or more. And yes, I'm going to say that every time I talk about it because it is insane to me.
This might be actually the biggest gaming disaster in history, even bigger than Concord.
According to the same journalist who has been talking about layoffs in the game industry these couple of days, Sony will lay off about half the studio staff this summer. The last time we had an update about the number of developers at the studio, it was around 800 people. This would mean that around 400 devs could be laid off, getting the studio around the same size as other PlayStation studios like Santa Monica and Naughty Dog.
Smash JT keeps getting blocked by everybody because they're massive bitches and they can't face the fact that we were right the entire time.
You'll love to see it. It's amazing. I live for this shit. And if there weren't enough, Bungie should expect massive layoffs this summer. Why am I blocked by these people? This is what I'm saying has been happening the entire time, and now it's happening. They should be thanking me for reporting accurately that it's been a shit game and a shit studio.
People like to defend Bungie and other studios because they're blinded by nostalgia, but that doesn't help studios make money.
It hits me particularly hard because Bungie is a studio close to my heart. And none of this should be happening. If people would just buy into the propaganda, guys, and play the shitty games and stop complaining about it, then these people could have jobs forever. It would be amazing. Marathon, which is struggling to hold 10,000 concurrent players, going right back to where it was after the free-to-play week, just ended. I still can't get over that, by the way. This is where the original rumor was starting over on Reset Era. This is following end of support Destiny 2, and the current bad situation for Marathon feels like things didn't turn around for the latter. No, they absolutely haven't. Based off the concurrent player count, it looks like it's going to get a lot worse. I'm hopeful that someone is batting for Destiny right now. They're not. They're not. In fact, if this rumor is to be true, which I believe it to be just based off of following what they're doing, like literally, they've told you what they're doing the entire time. You can choose not to listen, and many people will just stuff their head in the sand and pretend nothing's being said. But when Sony tells Bungie to move your developers off of Destiny and push them over to Marathon and put all your eggs into the Marathon basket, no longer future support for Destiny, no more updates, no more anything. Why would they need the same amount of employees to work at the studio? And if it's one less game out of two, that's 50% of your games, ergo 50% of your employees.
Smash JT points out how people are just blind to reality and want to live in a false reality. They want to live in their hug box where everything is just okay, but that's not how everything works. We try and tell these people every time, but they just pretend we're lying and don't want to look at the facts. But they were there the whole time. They just chose not to listen. And they want to insult us and call us liars instead. And it's all just projection.
There was a post from The Game Post in August of 2025 that I've referenced many times, and I wanted to show it to everyone just for proof that Sony did confirm that Bungie is becoming part of PlayStation Studios. Quote, "This independence is getting lighter." This was back in August of 2025. Sony has confirmed Bungie is slowly being folded into PlayStation Studios 2 years after the $3.6 billion acquisition. 2 years after Sony acquired Bungie for $3.6 billion deal, The Destiny 2 developer is slowly losing independence it was originally promised. The deal, which closed in mid-2022, was supposed to let Bungie operate as an independent subsidiary under Sony's umbrella. But after missed revenue targets, internal struggles, and multiple rounds of layoffs, Bungie's role within the PlayStation ecosystem is changing dramatically. Over the past year and a half, several key departments of Bungie have been moved under Sony. This includes teams handling marketing, publishing, HR, legal, IT, production, and most recently, strategic partnerships. Even Bungie's creative studios and leadership figures like former CTO Luis Villegas have transitioned into senior roles at PlayStation. Sony now says Bungie is, quote, becoming part of PlayStation Studios. The latest update comes straight from Sony itself during the company's Q1 fiscal year 2025 earnings call earlier today. Newly appointed Chief Financial Officer Lin Tao addressed Bungie's status and confirmed that its autonomy is slowly fading. Quote, about the governance of Bungie, at the time of acquisition, we were offering a very independent environment, so that was one way of thinking, Tao explained. However, we have gone through structural reform, and as we announced last year, so this independence is getting lighter, and Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more part of PlayStation Studios, and integration is proceeding. In the long term, you can see this as an ongoing process. So the direction is to become part of PlayStation Studios.
You can support me by liking the video and subscribing.